Anissa Coy here with Firehouse Education and this week's Ask Anissa video column. Before I get into this question, I just wanted to address my background. I know my last couple of videos, people have noticed my background's been a little bit different than usual. I am actually filming these series of videos in Costa Rica. It is currently February. And back home in Washington State, it's very, very cold and there's snow on the ground. So we decided to get out of that cold weather and hang out at the beach for a bit. So we are currently living in Costa Rica for a few weeks, and thus my pretty background. So now let's get down to business and jump right into this week's question. And this week, the question actually came in from Diana. And Diana said, I live in an 18-story high-rise condo building, and there was a fire on the first floor that was put out quickly, but that got pushed black soot through 5 out of the 10 floors. A few units had wet smoke. All have from not much to lots of dry smoke and many oily smoke. I have found many of your videos helpful in understanding what went on here. There is little restoration needed in most units, just getting rid of the soot and smell. How do we decide if we need pack out versus cleaning in place? We only have 3 elevators and packing out could take forever for the 40 or 50 units that are affected out of 180. Thanks so much, Diana. Okay, so Diana, you didn't say, but I believe that you're actually a homeowner. I don't believe that you're in the industry and that you're just trying to understand how would it be determined if the apartments need to be fully packed out or whether there can be a clean in place, which I've talked about in some of my other videos. So there's a few things I understand, and that seems like a really big challenge, and I'm sorry that you're going through this. But when we're determining whether or not we can do a clean in place or have to do a pack out, there's several factors involved. One, does the apartment have to, or the condo, the space, the structure, have to be painted due to the smoke intrusion? If it's greasy, oftentimes that is going to be what has to happen, because oftentimes on a greasy smoke intrusion, again, depending on the severity, I don't have pictures to look at here, depending on the severity of the fire, oftentimes we have to use a product called Degreasol. And when you use Degreasol, you have to paint afterward. So if a condo or the space has to be painted after the cleaning, it really doesn't make much sense to try to do a clean in place, because you're going to have to remove those items to do the painting anyway. So in that instance, oftentimes what we find ourselves doing is a full-on pack out. When it comes to the dry smoke and soot particles that are there, that is often something that we can do a clean in place. Again, it depends on the level or the severity of the contamination. Okay, cleaning the contents and the structure like that, where it's the clean in place, so we're not doing a pack out, is really going to depend on also where in location that condo is, to like, are you able to do proper containment? How affected was the HVAC system, which I'm guessing they were all very affected. So you're going to have to, it's going to be a little tricky, because you're going to probably have to clean HVAC, do containment, do the cleaning, then clean HVAC again. So it's a little tricky. All right. So the biggest thing that we have to consider here is the probability that we can do have success, I should say, with the clean in place, with decontaminating the structure, not only for the soot, but for odor removal. Now, using hydroxyl, which you may know I'm a huge fan of, is super wonderful in doing that when you're doing a clean in place. But again, it's going to depend on the severity of fire, or the contamination, I should say. It's also going to depend on whether or not it's a greasy soot, residue that's left, or are we cleaning something that is mostly dry? Okay. Sometimes it can also depend on the contents that are in the house, right? The one big thing about determining a clean in place is also, what am I dealing with in the home as far as who is living there, and do they have health conditions or not? The other thing that could also be something to consider in this case, which so many units involved, would be to have an industrial hygienist come in and do testing. That way it would determine and help us see, can we indeed decontaminate these structures without doing the full pack out? Because again, it's all about our success in decontamination and odor removal. So if the hygienist says, yeah, here's a good game plan that we can work with, then obviously I would push forward with that. If the hygienist is going to come in and say, no, all of these items have to be removed, there's just really no proper way to do this decontamination and get us back to a healthy environment with the structure and contents, then we're going to have to do the pack out. And unfortunately, it sounds like that would be quite a lot to do in your case. But that may be the only route that you have to go. So I hope that helped you in understanding how we would determine that. So the factors that will determine whether or not we do a clean in place is one, the severity and the level of contamination in each unit, and what kind. Is it wet or is it dry? The second thing I'm going to consider is the success of decontamination and odor removal. And then the third thing I'm going to consider is what kind of contents are involved in each unit. And is that going to hinder my success in remediation and decontamination? Okay. But I would definitely suggest with that many units in this large of a situation, getting an IH or an industrial hygienist person involved. And they will be able to give us out a really good scope of work so that we know that we can do things properly and get things decontaminated and get everybody back into their homes as quickly and as healthy as possible. Okay, well, thank you so very much, Diana, for the question. I hope that answered it great for you. If you have a question, put in the subject line, Ask Anisa, and email that to anisa@firehouseeducation.com. And I just might feature you on next week's Ask Anisa video column.